Hi, I'm Scarlet Android. 1 year ago, the Two Spies Discord, link in the description, held a Two Spies tournament to determine who was the best spy in all of Cold War Europe. 11 of the best spies in the Discord volunteered to duke it out to see who would reign supreme. I started the tournament with a great match against Covered Prism, then faced Serene Viper in another barn burner of a game, and both of those replays have been uploaded over the past 2 days. Those 2 wins advanced me to the semifinals against my longtime rival, Wary Stallion. Wary Stallion managed to beat the 7-time tournament winner Loud Stag to move on to the next round. Wary Stallion and I have faced hundreds of times over the years, both of us consistent double O's and both consistently battling, with neither being able to consistently beat each other. Now, with the tournament on the line, 2 of the best spies in Europe are facing once more, but this time in a best-of-7 series. Whichever spy strikes their opponent 4 times moves on to the finals. Let's get into the game. If this is your first time watching a Two Spies video, here's some of the basics. You win a round by moving to the same city as your opponent and striking. You can control cities, which shows you when your opponent moves into them and generates intel for you. Intel is the currency system of Two Spies, which allows you to buy different actions that make it easier to find your opponent. Every map has bonus cities highlighted in bold text, which generate 4 intel per turn instead of 1 for every other city, so bonus cities are extra valuable. As the round progresses, cities will start to spawn intel in them, and if you end your turn in that city, you'll gain the amount of intel on your next turn, but your opponent will see where you are. And as the round goes on, cities will start to shut down, which makes you and your opponent get closer together, which makes it more dangerous. That's it for the basics. Everything else will be explained during the rounds. We start the tournament match on the map Bifocal. Geneva and Warsaw are 2 bonus cities in the center of the map, and Berlin and Vienna connect both of them. I decided to move to Warsaw initially because it's a bonus city, it has 10 intel, and because it's too far away for Wary Stallion to strike me. Intel spawns in Berlin, which tells Wary Stallion that I didn't travel to Berlin because intel can't spawn in a city that either spy is currently in. They travel twice, and I think they're either in Berlin or in Stockholm because it borders both Berlin and Warsaw, though they could have just stayed in Brussels as well. I decided to just control Warsaw to earn more intel per turn and then wait to make sure I'm safe. Wary Stallion moves and strikes, and I think they're either in Berlin or in Geneva. I decided to just strike Geneva, and I'll explain why in a second. I miss a strike, and then their cover is blown in Berlin because they picked up intel. I could have struck in Warsaw or Vienna, or just fake struck in my own city, and now that their cover is blown, if they move from Berlin and strike, it is incredibly obvious that they moved and struck Geneva. They don't want to be obvious and potentially lose, so because of the intel space, they control rather than just striking me. I control and move to Vienna, and then they move to Warsaw and go somewhere, I don't know. I fake strike, mostly just to scare them, and then they pick up intel in Kiev. I decide to buy Rapid Recon, which blows the opponent's cover if I move to the same city as them, which is incredibly valuable during the early game. They move twice, I control and move, and then they buy Encryption. Inaction space spawns in Stockholm, so I decide to buy Strike Reports, which blows my opponent's cover if they strike, then I move to Geneva. I think Wary Stallion is going to try to use that action space as bait, and try to go deep into an unexpected city. Going deep allows you to be safe in opponent's city without being seen, so I decide to rotate to the back to try to catch them in Geneva. Looking back, I don't think this move was optimal, because they would have had to be in Berlin to go deep, which would be unsafe due to my Rapid Recon, or have moved to Paris and Brussels, which is far away from the important cities. They spend intel on an operation, but I don't know which one because they bought Encryption earlier. I strike Geneva, but they're not here. Instead, they are in Stockholm and control my Warsaw, which is very lame. I buy Encryption and move to Venice to collect some intel. They control Stockholm, and I locate to see where they are, and then move to Geneva to defend against them going deep. It's early in the game, and they haven't had bonus cities or picked up intel in a while, so I don't think they've bought Rapid Recon, which costs 40 intel. They buy an operation, I strike in case they go deep in my city, but they aren't and just retreat back to Vienna. They end up being in Amsterdam and buy an action, so I decide to go deep into Warsaw to try to regain my bonus city. They buy another action, so I decide to go deep into Warsaw again because this makes me safer and allows me to control the next turn. They could have prepped in Berlin, and if I were to control right now, then they could control Geneva, or they could come strike me. Going deep in Warsaw allows me to control the next turn and still remain safe and defend my cities. They end up in Paris, and when they buy an action and move, I think their goal is to attack Geneva to get some territory. so they likely either went into Geneva to control or prep to control the next turn. I'd like to prep to defend my city, but I only have 39 intel instead of the required 40. So instead I locate, which because of my encryption makes it look like I went deep or prepped to control my city, but also allows me to prep next turn as locate only costs 10 intel and I'm earning 12 intel per turn. They control Geneva, which completely ruins my plan of prepping because they messed with the amount of intel I earn per turn. However, Wary Stallion is scared of my rapid recon from earlier and likely retreated so they wouldn't get caught. This threat allows me to go deep into Geneva safely with a very low risk of getting struck. Their cover is not blown in Berlin or Monaco from the intel or action, which means right now they are trapped in Paris, which has shut down. This turn they need to move out of Paris, so they'll either move to Geneva or Monaco. They probably went to Monaco because it's safe and there's a prep, but it feels too risky to move and strike when they could easily just be in the same city as me. So I just strike Geneva, and when I miss, retreat back to Warsaw, and not Vienna. I'm still in a very good position to win this match. They move to Venice and Vienna trying to find me with their rapid recon, but I am too far away for them to catch me, so they move back to Venice. They give me a little taunt, and I have a little think. I'd really just like to stockpile intel here for the endgame, so I just move into their city and move back to Warsaw. This just makes it a lot more dangerous situation for them because I could be in Monaco or Vienna, and it almost forces them to go deep. I go deep into Vienna because I'll be safe and to try to cut them off, and they most likely go deep again, and I move to Geneva to try to cut them off from the intel to make sure they keep going deep. And then intel spawns in Vienna. That tells Wary Stallion that I am not in Vienna and makes this a 50-50, and there's a far less chance that I go deep in my own city rather than just go into their city with intel. So I'm very worried that I'm going to be struck, and Wary Stallion takes the opportunity to really think through the situation, really savor the moment. They know I'm on the ropes, and they're just thinking, should they move to Geneva and strike, or should they go deep? I'm hoping that they choose the peaceful route, but instead, they move and strike. Now that is just unlucky. A bad intel spawn gives them a good chance of winning, and I lose round 1. It likely was going to come down to a 50-50 regardless, but that one doesn't make me very happy. But that happens in 2 Spies, and I just need to play better and make a nice comeback. For round 2, I get to go first on the map, the Turkish Connection. And I think they repaid my bad luck because this is one of the best spawns in the game. I have access to both bonus cities on the map, and they have no way to defend either. I move to Amsterdam to set up a play that I like in this situation. They move twice, and I immediately strike London. London is a very common place for them to move in this situation because it's close to Amsterdam, and striking still allows me to be safe. The way this map is designed, the only way to contest Istanbul is by moving to Rome. But that makes it safe for the person in Istanbul to just strike Rome with very little chance of being struck back. Because of this, most players going second in this situation head up north to London or to Brussels. And when I strike London, it just makes it look like I struck Rome. Whereas Stallion, who is currently in Brussels, thinks that I'm in Rome, but moving to Amsterdam is too risky because I could just be playing silly, so they move twice. This play is insane, by the way, and only works when you both completely understand the game of 2 Spies and have played each other hundreds of times to know how the other person thinks. They still think I'm in Rome or being weird in Amsterdam or Istanbul, so this allows me to strike Amsterdam with little chance of being struck, because now they think I moved from Rome and struck Istanbul. I miss because they're in Berlin, but they buy strike reports and I am in an incredibly powerful position. A prep space spawn in Kiev, but they still think I'm in Istanbul, and when I buy strike reports, they think I can be in Kiev. I moved to Istanbul because it's a more powerful position due to its proximity to the prep space. This intel spawn in Warsaw is also important because when they locate me next turn, it tells me that they can't move to Kiev because they are not close enough to it. This lets me control Istanbul and wait. Wary Stallion thinks they've caught me off guard by moving to Warsaw and try to surprise me in Kiev, thinking that I either moved to Kiev or moved too far away to strike. But because I waited, I got the win. My spawn position and my tricky plays put me in a good position, and a good wait let me even up the score at 1-1. Round 3 starts with Wary Stallion going first on the map Roundabout. London, Berlin, and Geneva are all bonus cities, though London is a bit stranded in the northwest. They move twice and they're in either Berlin, Geneva, or Venice. I decide to stay in Amsterdam to make them worried I went into one of the important cities, or I snuck around the back into Paris or London. My strategy backfires when they control Berlin and strand me up north, but a prep spawns in London, which does help my situation a little. I decide to fake strike into London just to add a little more confusion. Theoretically, I could be in Geneva or Venice, so this will at least make them a little scared for the time being. They move and strike, but I think they're just striking to scare me. I don't think they actually move to Geneva. So during my turn, I beeline it right down to Monaco and go for a big strike. Now I know I'm going to miss this, but that is exactly what I want. From Warrior Stallion's point of view, I got desperate being stuck in London and went for a big strike on the bonus city that they just fake struck, so now they move to Geneva to strike. And then I move to Geneva and win. This was a pretty slick play where I pretended to do an obvious desperate move to get my opponent to strike and then strike for the win. Now I have a 2-1 lead moving into round 4. Warrior Stallion moves twice to get the round started on East Wings, which has 3 bonus cities in Amsterdam, Berlin, and Vienna. They're definitely in Berlin because it's the most important city, and I decide to turtle once again to see what happens. They control and move, and I decide to strike Geneva. My goal for this round is to control these 5 southern cities because this is usually where the players are forced as the game goes on. This is risky though, as it allows them to control the bonus cities and get intel while I'll have very little. They strike and miss, probably in Amsterdam or Vienna, and an action spawns in Monaco. I decide to just control and allow them to see where I am. I think about moving to Brussels, then Monaco, but decide to move to Venice. Theoretically next turn, when my cover isn't blown, they could think I moved to Brussels and I could have a very sneaky strike in Vienna. Unfortunately, they just control Vienna, so I reset and move to the prep space. They buy encryption, I control Paris and move to London, and then they buy in action. They were just in Budapest, and there's an open city in Amsterdam, so it's an obvious move to just control and move to Amsterdam, which is why I don't do it. They just picked up 20 intel and control 2 bonus cities, so I think they've actually prepped and will try to control Amsterdam. So I remain calm by controlling and just moving to Brussels where I'll be safe. This is a good lesson for newer spies: always be careful of the opponent prepping with encryption, especially if they just picked up intel. My hunch was correct, but then a prep space spawns in Amsterdam, which is super lame. They control and move, and I try to play a little bold. I think they've moved away from the prep space to see if I'll strike, and are waiting until next turn to use it. So instead of retreating, I control and stay in Brussels, planning to strike them in Amsterdam the next turn. Uh-oh. They stayed in Amsterdam, and I'm toast. Bold moves don't always work out, sadly, and now we're tied 2-2. For round 5, we're back on the Turkish connection, and I get to go first, so after I lose by making a dumb bold decision, I decide to make another dumb bold decision and move to Amsterdam. I just don't think they're gonna strike, so I go for it. Don't do that to me, Warrior Stallion. You're gonna give me a heart attack. Jeez. Now my initial thought is that they fake struck Amsterdam, so I move to Stockholm and strike, but miss. They also strike and miss, but now it's weird. They could have stayed in Berlin initially and fake struck, and then moved to Amsterdam to catch me this turn. Or they could have struck Vienna initially and tried to catch me going down to Istanbul. I don't like the situation at all, but I feel like I just have to strike Amsterdam, so I do. Or I guess they could have just struck to scare me twice and just wanted to get 20 intel in Warsaw? I don't know, maybe I just overthought it. They move twice and intel spawns in Istanbul, so I control and decide that I want some intel too. They strike, which is super scary once again, but I survive and now control both bonus cities and have them stranded in the northeast. We each buy strike reports, and then he locates because intel spawned in Istanbul, which is a little weird. We each buy encryption, then I locate and move to Istanbul to try to cut them off if they go deep. They control, so I decide to just wait twice to stockpile some intel. It's Warrior Stallion's turn, and hello! They thought moving twice meant that I moved toward the prep space, or the intel, and they were in a very bad position, so they gambled and moved to the city where I was at. I strike, and now I'm up 3-2 and just need one more round win to move on to the finals of the Two Spies tournament. For round 6, Warrior Stallion gets to go first on East Wings. Again. This is a different spawn, however, so I don't mind it very much. They move first, and they might be in Berlin, I'm not sure. They most likely are in Amsterdam, Berlin, or Geneva, so I move to Stockholm to try to contest Amsterdam and Berlin. They are in Berlin and control and move. Now I don't think they moved to Amsterdam right away, so instead of striking, I fake strike to try to bait them into a strike and get a win. Instead they buy strike reports and move, which would be awful if not for the intel spawning in Brussels. They would have controlled if they were in Amsterdam, so they're definitely not there now. So I decided to move into Amsterdam and wait to see if they'll strike Brussels. It was risky, but my read was correct. And when they move and strike and miss, I waltz over to Brussels and strike to move on to the finals of the 2 spies. Oh, never mind then. They fake struck in Berlin to make sure they'd survive, so they aren't able to strike me, but they are in a good position when they buy encryption. I control, they control Vienna and move, and then I buy strike reports so I can safely move to Geneva, which looks to be the most important city currently. They buy an action, and I'm worried they went deep or prepped, but I need this city, so I control and retreat to Paris. They pick up 30 intel and control, so I control and move to Brussels. But when they buy an action, I think they've prepped to try to snag Geneva and are likely in Venice, which is shutting down. I go deep, which they can see because I don't have encryption, to try to make it look like I went deep into Geneva, hoping they can move to Geneva and strike, and I keep my territory. They buy an action, and now they can just be anywhere. Intel spawns in Amsterdam, so I just strike Brussels, but miss and decide to stay rather than moving toward the intel. They control Geneva, and I don't think they've bought Rapid Recon, so I decided to prep, which might turn out bad, but I will get 40 intel in Amsterdam, which basically makes this free. I don't have encryption though, so this play is very obvious. I could still be in Brussels or Amsterdam, so they don't know what to do, and probably just go deep and move somewhere, possibly to the prep that just spawned in Monaco. I decided to go deep in Geneva because it would be obvious to move to the intel in Paris, and I just feel it's safer. Their cover is not blown in Monaco or Paris with the intel in action, and also not blown in Geneva where I am, so they have to be in Berlin, which just shut down, or they're in Brussels. This is a very weird situation. If they're in Berlin, they need to get out of the city this next turn, meaning they'll have to go deep into Amsterdam or Geneva. But if they're in Brussels, they probably go deep and wait or move to Paris. They buy an action and move, so I decide to strike to catch them if they go deep in Geneva, but I miss. There's a prep space in Monaco that they can't be in, ignore the marker, it's just wrong, so I would be safe as long as they're not in Paris. I could also move to Brussels, which could cut them off if they're in Amsterdam, and makes me safe if they are in Paris, but I think Monaco is just much safer than Brussels. And sadly, they end up being in Paris and make the correct read to win round 6. And now we're tied 3-3 with 1 round to decide who moves on to the final round of the 2 Spies tournament, because of course we would. When you and your opponent have the same spying skills, it's going to consistently come down to the last round. For round 7, I get to go first on the map St. Peter's Cross. St. Peter's Cross is a very interesting map. There are 4 bonus cities all connected in the center, which are incredibly valuable, but incredibly risky to try to control. It's a big advantage to go first on this map because you're able to control one of the bonus cities for free, basically, but that might not be the optimal move. On this map, top-level spies have figured out a strategy for the second player that makes it safer. Instead of moving to one of the 4 bonus cities and praying, instead you stay around the outside, then next turn, strike to potentially get a win, but mostly to remain safe in one of the cities. This strategy works very well, and I know this. However, looking at the spawn, Stallion is only able to do this strategy near Geneva and Vienna, because cities connecting Berlin and Warsaw are too far away. And with the intel in Geneva, there's a very real possibility that I can control, and next turn they'd be locked out of the bonus cities. So truly, the optimal move for Stallion in this situation is to move to Belgrade, the next turn strike and try to get a bonus city. And this crosses my mind as I start the round. And the best counter to that strategy is for me to move to Belgrade first and catch them. Now this is incredibly risky. Worst case scenario, they move to one of the bonus cities or just strike Geneva, and now I'm stuck around the outside, completely squandering the advantage that going first gave me. And it's also worth noting that I've never really tried this strategy before. I've thought about it, but decided it was too risky, so it would make perfect sense to try this in round 7 of the semifinals against one of the best 2 Spies players in the world. Worry Stallion moves twice, and that's the game. Let's cut to Worry Stallion's reaction post-game, and yeah, I would be flabbergasted if someone pulled that against me in that situation as well, but it worked out. Overall, that was an incredible game in the Two Spy semifinals. Extremely back and forth with a ton of mind games and high-level strategy throughout. A GG with 2 exclamation marks to Worry Stallion for an amazing game of Two Spies. And now I'm on to the finals of the Two Spies tournament. I wonder who I'm facing. Oh no, not Smooth Charlie. But that will have to wait until the next video. If you would like to talk to me or Worry Stallion, or even sign up for a future Two Spies tournament yourself, come join the Two Spies Discord. 800 of the greatest spies in all of Cold War Europe, all together in one Discord where we hold tournaments, play matches, and talk about the matches we play against each other. If this sounds interesting to you, come join the Two Spies tournament, link in the description. Thank you for watching.